He said I was dangerous, violent, unstable. He said it with trembling hands and tearful eyes that could make any jury believe him. For months, I lived under the shadow of a restraining order built on lies, neighbors crossing the street, co-workers avoiding eye contact, my own mother whispering caution into every phone call. The man who once whispered love now painted me as a threat. But I'm a forensic accountant. I deal in patterns, paper trails, and truth. And lies, no matter how pretty, always leave numbers that don't add up. When he began circling my building, creating new accounts to message me, leaving notes only I could decode, I stopped being afraid. I started documenting. Watching. Waiting. Justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes, it wears patience, and when patience breaks, it does so quietly, with a click of a file upload. The courtroom smelled of cold varnish and fear. I stood there, hands clasped, heartbeat measured, while Ryan Calder painted me into something monstrous. His voice trembled just enough. He practiced that quiver. She threatened me, he told the judge. She said she'd ruin my life. I wanted to laugh. Instead, I watched the bailiff's eyes flick toward me, half expecting an outburst. But I'd built my career on restraint. Numbers don't yell. They reveal. My name is Mara Ellison, 33, forensic accountant. I untangle embezzlement for a living, quiet crimes committed by quiet people. I didn't expect to become one of them. When the judge granted the restraining order, I felt the world narrow, 10 feet of distance, 5 years of suspicion. My employer temporarily reassigned me. My landlord looked nervous. My mother's voice, on the phone, softened like she was speaking to a fragile thing. Ryan walked past me outside the courthouse, the faintest smirk cutting across his face. "Stay away from me," he whispered, loudly enough for the security camera to hear. He knew exactly what he was doing. And so did I. The first month was suffocating. Silence clung to me like smoke, every sound outside my apartment a possible threat, every knock a ghost of accusation. I spoke to no one unless absolutely necessary. I deleted my social media, stopped visiting familiar cafes, walked home along routes without cameras. If Ryan wanted to make me vanish, I decided to help him. But silence has edges, and I learned to sharpen them. Every text I received, every blocked call, every anonymous email, I saved. Dates, times, IP addresses. I bought a small external drive, labeled it tax records, and filled it with evidence he didn't know he was leaving. He was sloppy. Fear makes people confident, they assume their lies are smarter than the truth. At night, I would sit in the dim light of my laptop, scrolling through the restraining order's language. Prohibited from contact or proximity within 100 feet. Each line was both a cage and a map. Ryan thought he'd silence me. What he didn't understand was that silence, in the right hands, becomes a weapon. The first message arrived at 2:17 a.m., a blank email with the subject line, "Remember who you are." No name, no signature, just that sentence suspended in white space. By dawn, 3 more followed. All from new accounts. Each with phrases Ryan used to say in arguments, tiny verbal fingerprints no one else could know. You always need proof. You can't stand not being in control. The final one said, "I see you counting things again." I didn't reply. I printed them instead, sliding each page into a clear folder. The ink still smelled fresh. The next week, I caught sight of him, or his outline, in the reflection of a shop window across from my office. A hood, a phone angled just enough. When I turned, he was gone. My pulse didn't race. It calculated. He was breaching his own restraining order. Every message, every sighting, evidence stacking itself neatly, like ledgers waiting for audit. I renamed the folder, Calder_stalking_01. Each click of the mouse sounded like a gavel. The camera didn't blink, but I did. For a moment. Then I watched again. I'd installed a motion sensor outside my building, angled just shy of the entryway. The footage showed him, Ryan, standing beneath the street lamp, half illuminated, half shadow. He wasn't moving toward my door, he was just there, watching. His hood drawn, hands deep in his coat pockets. The timestamp read 2:41 a.m. He stayed for 12 minutes. Long enough to know I'd see it. I saved the clip, duplicated it, Uploaded one copy to cloud storage labeled Client Audit 2023. My habits kept me alive: encryption, organization, foresight. He thought this was still a game of fear. It wasn't. It was record keeping. The next night, he parked closer. I saw the same car, same dented fender, same flicker of headlights. I called the police once. They told me to document it and avoid confrontation. I smiled at that. Documentation was my art form. Each new sighting became another entry in my growing archive, a silent testimony that would soon speak louder than any accusation he'd ever made. Ryan thought he was invisible. He'd forgotten who taught him how to trace patterns. It began with a credit alert, a small, seemingly harmless notification that an account had been opened in my name. But when I checked the details, the address didn't match mine. It matched hers, the new girlfriend, the one he'd paraded online weeks after the court hearing. I didn't rage. I reconciled. Using professional credentials and quiet persistence, I pulled the records. The account linked to a fraudulent tax return, routing money into an old business account Ryan once shared with me. He'd used my information as a smokescreen. If the fraud was discovered, the trail would lead to me. I printed every page, dated and annotated. The numbers didn't lie, they never do. They whispered a story of desperation, of a man unraveling behind his carefully constructed victimhood. By the time I was done, I had enough to ruin him. But ruin wasn't the goal, exposure was. I organized the files into a digital ledger titled Calder, Pattern of Control. When I closed my laptop that night, I realized something unsettling. I wasn't afraid of Ryan anymore. I was auditing him. By the end of February, my apartment resembled an evidence lab. Every surface was cataloged: emails, photos, bank statements, timestamps, my quiet war arranged in folders. I no longer saw paper, I saw leverage. Ryan's world was shrinking, even if he didn't know it yet. The fraudulent accounts tied to two women before me, both under similar aliases. One had filed bankruptcy. The other had vanished offline entirely. His pattern wasn't love, it was laundering. I cross-referenced transactions, linked phone records to his new girlfriend's Wi-Fi network. Each connection tightened the noose. Some nights, I caught myself whispering aloud, rehearsing how I'd testify. Calmly. Precisely. As though I were narrating an audit. The irony wasn't lost on me: the same courtroom that silenced me would one day play my evidence like a symphony. I wasn't collecting proof for revenge. I was collecting it for correction. Justice, when patient, becomes arithmetic, every deceit accounted for, every cruelty tallied. And Ryan Calder's balance was finally due. Justice, I learned, isn't loud. It's coded, hidden in metadata, timestamps, the unblinking memory of a network log. I baited him carefully. A new email, a subtle breadcrumb. I wrote, "You win. I just want to talk." Send it from a fresh account with my initials reversed, the kind of oversight he'd expect from someone desperate. Within hours, he replied, not from one address, but 3. All traceable. Every message grew bolder, gloating, possessive, unstable. He couldn't resist the chance to reassert control. That was his flaw: obsession leaves fingerprints. Using a tracking pixel embedded in my final reply, I caught his location within 30 meters of my building. I sent the logs, the footage, and the financial evidence to a detective I'd quietly befriended at that previous case. I didn't embellish, I simply attached the files. 3 days later, the trap snapped shut. The same police who once warned me to avoid confrontation were now reviewing his every step, every message. Ryan hadn't realized the truth yet, but his own words had become the witness that would undo him. The morning they came for him, the sky was washed in dull gray, the kind of indifferent color that makes everything feel inevitable. I watched from my kitchen window as the unmarked car pulled to the curb outside Ryan's apartment. 2 officers stepped out, their movements brisk, deliberate. He opened the door half-dressed, irritation turning to confusion, then to panic. Even from a distance, I could see his hands shake as they cuffed him. The irony was perfect: the same cuffs he'd imagined for me now locked around his wrists. The detective called me an hour later. "We've got him," she said. "Stalking, violation of the restraining order, wire fraud. The evidence trail is airtight." I didn't celebrate. I poured coffee. Sat in silence. Justice, when it arrives, doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like gravity, heavy, cold, absolute. That night, I opened my old restraining order, folded it neatly, and slid it into the shredder. The sound was surgical, final. Ryan Calder had been right about one thing. I was dangerous, but only to lies. The courtroom felt smaller this time, not because it had changed, but because I no longer fit the shape of the woman who once stood trembling there. Ryan sat at the defense table, thinner now, his eyes hollowed by sleepless calculation. The same judge presided, though her gaze was colder, almost wary of how easily truth can be forged into chains. When I took the stand, I didn't look at him. I looked at the evidence. The prosecutor guided me gently through my testimony, the timestamps, the footage, the bank transfers. Each file projected behind me, sterile and undeniable. I explained how the emails were traced, how the fraud aligned with his login history. My voice didn't waver. Ryan's attorney tried to discredit me, vindictive, obsessed, unstable, the same language Ryan once weaponized. But every accusation dissolved under data. Each word he spoke, each denial, collided with a fact he'd left behind. By the time I stepped down, his mask had fractured. He wasn't the victim anymore. He was the case study. And the courtroom, once my cage, had become my calculator. Sentencing was brief. Fraud. Stalking. Perjury. Each count stacked with clinical precision until Ryan's smirk, that practiced, smug curve of safety, disappeared entirely. The judge's gavel came down like punctuation at the end of a long, merciless equation. 5 years? Consecutive. No parole for the first 3. I watched him as the bailiff led him away. He tried to meet my eyes, searching for outrage, for pity, something human to grasp. But I'd run out of emotion months ago. All that remained was balance. Outside the courthouse, the winter air cut through my coat. The noise of the city returned like a language I hadn't spoken in years. I was free, but not untouched. Freedom after violation feels like silence after gunfire, you keep listening for what's already gone. At home, I archived the final folder, case_closed. PDF. Then I powered down my computer. Justice, I learned, doesn't restore what was taken. It only restores the truth, and that's enough. For now.